Today we hear about the Songololos who went for a walk. Now, their plan for the walk was to go and see where the little stream nearby where they lived was flowing. They were going to play in the stream. I'm sure you know what it's like to play in a stream, or maybe even in the shallow water at the seaside. Well, the Songololos were ready to go and play in the stream. Off they went. They left their little compost heap. They went across the little dry road into the grass, through some of the forest area, and then they heard the bubbling of the stream in the distance. Closer and closer they came. Bird noises became more and more, and eventually there they were, very close to the stream. One of them said, we've been on the go so long, let's have a rest before we go and play. Sure. And that's when they looked for and found a lovely, comfortable area where they could rest. Now, the thing about that area where they were resting is there were old trees, but there were not really many flowers. Some of the trees were gnarled and their stems had all sorts of cracks and holes in them. And that's where the Songololos were resting. While they were having their rest, one of them sat up suddenly. I'm not sure how Songololos sit up, but this one did. Sat up suddenly and said, "Did you hear that? I thought it was a buzzing sound." A little while later, another buzzing sound sounded. And another one looked up and he looked that way. And he checked it out and he checked it out and he said, "No, I don't know what they're looking for, but it looks like it's a bee." Next thing, on this side, there was another buzzing sound of a bee, but there were no flowers. And then they heard more and more. There weren't all that many, maybe 5 or 6, and the bees were just flying around, checking out, landing on the trees, landing on the branches, even onto the ground. Some of them walked around, and these Songololos were very confused. "What do you think they're doing?" said the Songololos to one another. "We're not sure. We'll have to find out from somebody afterwards." Well, I can tell you what those bees were doing. Those bees were actually looking for a new place to live. Every so often, when a beehive gets big enough, it breaks up into 2 hives, and then a new queen bee, or sometimes the old one, takes a whole lot of bees and they fly off somewhere. They land maybe in a tree and they hang like a cluster inside the tree, and all of them swarming around the queen. And then they send some scout bees. Now, scout bees are bees that go looking, and these ones were scout bees that were looking for a new place for the bees to make their hive. And that's what the Songololos heard. They heard these bees not looking for flowers, not looking for pollen or for nectar, but looking for a good spot to make a new nest. Sometimes bees will make a nest in the bottom of an old tree trunk, or even in a hole in the tree trunk. If there's an old wall that's broken down and that's left a little hole, sometimes they'll even do it in there. And they will do it in people's homes, maybe in the roof, not often, and sometimes even in the chicken runs that people have outside in their backyards. After a while, the Songololos noticed that the bees had gone. "Oh, wow," said the Songololo, one of them. "Check, there's no more bees around. Maybe it's safe for us to move on now." And so they did. Off they went to the little stream, and this was a much better stream than the previous one they'd seen. This one was running very gently and smoothly. It was trickling over the rocks, and it made lovely little muddy spots and pools where they could play. And for the rest of the time they were there, they played in that water. Some of them dragged some sticks into the water and tried to walk on the sticks and see if they would float. Others just splashed in the water. One of them floated out and got dragged away by the stream a little bit until he grabbed onto another stone, a rock, and he came out of the stream. And by the time they had finished playing in the stream, they had gotten a little hungry. And so they looked around and they found some nice freshly dried leaves. And they nibbled on those. They didn't have to drink anything because they'd already been in the stream. And so, having had a really, really lovely time in the forest and by the stream, and learning all about bees, because they found out about it afterwards, they made their way home. on the little pathway in the forest, through the long grass, across the dusty road that took them back to the fence, under which they went into the yard where their compost heap was. And that day the Songololos, when they eventually went to bed very, very drowsy. You have a good day. We'll chat again soon. Bye.